Last video should be fun to look at. I like to give myself something to do in the evening. I thought, well, give myself something to listen to, so I can either make more video or listen to video. Probably both. It's kind of all I do. You'd think I could generate some money doing it, I suppose. Maybe I should think about it. I spend so much time, get a better camera, clean up some stuff, and then just start a channel where I just put the best of this channel, keep doing what I'm doing, and then upload like 15 minutes that I think is like the cream of the crop. Maybe even do some editing. Ooh, bad word. Hi. I don't know what he's looking for. There's no fish. Like, it's plain as day. You can see I've been sitting there for an hour. There's not a single fish we're finding. But it's good days and bad days. I don't think the fish are as likely to run down the river when the weather is nice. I think they're going to run down the river. Well, they're going to be running down the river, October, November. And they're going to pick days that are drizzly, and the hardest days to fish in. That's what I would do. And the river comes up higher, and it's... I don't know. Nature's pretty smart. This is the day for the Sunday fishermen. This is like guys like me who just want to get a boat, go out in a lake. Screw this river stuff. I don't like moving water. I want to sit there, anchor up, have a little sandwich, get some tea out of the thermos, some English tea, maybe some Earl Grey. Honey, make me a cucumber sandwich. I just did. No, unmake it and make it again so I can see you making it. Because I take such pleasure in that, my love. Okay. And just have a little fun sporting with each other. It's like, you don't really expect me to do that, do you? No, honey, I'm just sporting with you. You could if you really love me, but emotional blackmail is totally useful. And you married a wicked man. Oh, there's someone making a YouTube video down there. Oh. I call myself the wicked man on my dating profile. The wicked man. Also a virgin, but also the wicked man. You got to think that a 50-year-old virgin has got to give himself a cool name. I mean, he's clearly never going to get laid, so he might as well have fun, right? It's kind of like a retard, You let them play sports. They could never win against a real healthy person, but you don't disturb the fun that they're having, pretending that they can do something normally, because they're just a bunch of other retards. I just want the same consideration. That's all. I just want the same consideration as you would give the average retard. Thank you. And by the way, you're welcome for using the word retard in the way it was meant to be used. And no retards were harmed in the making of this video. I went to school with retards. The school I went to used to be an all-retard school. And then they took the short bus. They gave it kind of a section in the school where the retards went. Now, we didn't really call them retards, but you were aware that they had some kind of strangeness about them. Like they were gonna need daily 24-hour care the rest of their lives, if they're even alive still, right? And I think that's unfortunate. What are they even doing at school? Why don't you let them go romp around in nature, till a hunter blows their head off? Why don't you let them have some fun? You know what? I bet you that these retards, if they were allowed to go into a perfectly awesome, wild, heavenly zone of human existence, their retardations would fall away. One day they'd be like, okay, the heavenly farm. And then after a day or two, they're like, yes, I really found it quite invigorating. What's next? Retards on ice? Yeah, I have a brain in here, moron. Thanks for giving me some fresh air for the first fucking time in my life. Now release these bonds and allow me to work. Or walk around bond-free. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Greenwood, for being there to wipe the drool from my face. Because the only thing you know to do for any problem is put people in an institution. The retards are advanced in their appreciation for the logical extent of all civilization, which is to make us retarded. They are the cream of the crop. We should be listening to them, except in a sort of foul irony. We can't understand what they're saying, and we don't want to. And I got free. I got loose. And they gave me vocal cords. And they're like, go free. We want to see what people will listen to. One of the retards if they could talk. My dad would be very proud. I'd say if I could make 80 G's. Whoa. 80 G's from YouTube or anything else. I never would have thought YouTube would be a way to generate money for me. I never thought about, what if, to finish my thought, what if I made a 10, 15 minute little, hey, and I'll brand myself as like Mr. Moneybags, just to attract money. I'll be like, your money expert for making money out of nothing. I'll call it Raven Song. If your flesh and blood and my flesh and blood come from the seasons of earth and mud, then you and I are worth something like the earth and sky, and turning all by itself in every kind of realm. Our flesh and blood is measured out in every and money grows on trees. We generate it like our toenails. We should be able to grow money from our flesh and blood in a system based in our flesh and blood. If the system's based on your flesh and blood and your mommy and your daddy, then you can run and generate as much as that wonderful stuff has been laundered by your mind, and you've had enough. It's time to clean that shit right out of your hair. It's time to make that money everything that comes with spring. Bum, 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 bum. I'm going to work in some really disgusting lyrics. Cover your ears. And I want to lick her pussy from the crevice to the crack. I want to sing like Jesus when he's getting something back. I'm losing it. I'm losing the spirit, everyone. The spirit is leaving me. I can no longer attest to the confessions of my own flesh and blood. I am deprived of those measures which I would sound forth, and winds themselves shall move and murmur among the many beasts and foul deprecations of the emotional animal of my mind. My mind. I say it like that because it's serious. It's my mind. It turns like the heavens and the earth. It's my mind. What can I do? Instead of saying that's life, just be like, oh, that's my mind. You're in a giant car wreck. There's like an inferno, an earthquake, and a meteor hits you all at the same time. You're like, that's just my mind talking. That's my mind. What can you do? Turning stars, planets, earth, explosions. Many destinies unwinding. And there's my mind just moving around like the clouds, like, hey, what up? Just another Tuesday for us. Gotta bring some rain to Area 51. At least the threat of rain, but never, ever the satisfaction of it. We're torturing the people in Area 51. They always think it's gonna rain, but it never does. They always think it's gonna rain, but it never comes down, not ever again. And everything grows like the true desires of the earth is left with funeral pies. You gotta rain down heaven above. You gotta grow every spring of your flesh and blood. In case you haven't noticed, they're the drums. Oh, it's okay, everyone. I'm just going to turn the lights back on a little bit and, try to rearrange yourself so you're with the people you originally came from, because probably some of those feelings are feeling a little hurt right now in the darkness and where you gravitated to. And how many people got someone to touch their boob while I was singing that song? Oh, I wish I could have been there. I wish someone could have taken over my job and I could have just been like a little tiny little gnat watching the curve of that hand around her supple breast. Is that not one of the most beautiful songs of human flesh and blood that could ever be? I call it First Touch. I want the first touch. I've never had the first touch. I would have breasts just so I could feel the first touch of a boy that loved me. First touch. Tonight's the night, I'd write in my journal. He's going to do for it. I've been wearing my tightest sweaters for weeks. I even used chapstick on my woo-woo. just in case he decides to get ambitious and go south of the border. Because I might go all the way with him. But I doubt he'll go for it. More than anything, he'll probably just relax, having committed the cardinal sin of showing an honest desire for female flesh, and now wondering what will happen to him. What curse should now befall him? For he's a paranoid man, my boy. I would tell my son, once you touch your breast, you pay attention to omens. If you pay attention to omens, there's no bad omens, but watch how she treats you after that. Does she expect more? Does she expect you to fall in love with her 100% because there was some physical contact with one of her mammary glands, which may still yet prove useful in the nourishment of your children? But you don't know that for sure. All you know is this is a woman who will let you touch her tit on the third date. You write this in your journal, of course, lock it up, she finds it, and then you have your first discussion. Honey, hey, call me, Kay. We gotta talk. Okay, first, I want to say an apology, and hey, I got a bone to pick with you. Okay, well, first, the apology. I'm sorry I looked at your journal, which was an ultimate violation. You have the right to break up with me, but I hope you don't, because part 2, you touch my breast, and yet you refer to me as some kind of whore that still hasn't proven and passed the test of your discriminating powers, that you wonder even yet, after you've touched my beautiful feminine curves, I could bear your children. What kind of man are you? I'm asking, could you give our children the father that they deserve? I've been examining you, my friend, and I'm not sure if you measure up. I'm not sure if I even want to fantasize about what I was fantasizing about up until like yesterday. And believe me, you wanted to know what I was fantasizing about. You want to hear nothing but that. You would read that smut from here to the end of eternity, you pervert. You fucking pervert. Wait, Nancy, this is going off track. You're going off the rails. Stay to the main focus. Right. This is all your fault. And you're welcome. I forgive you. It's no thing. It's no thing to be me. It's no thing, spring to be me. I felt the fear of losing free. I felt the fear of my voice and the sting of the choice of man to make right from wrong in his mind and his heart and hand, and to steel himself for the many warts and woes that he will feel the touch of hatred as he grows. And I feel that there's something much more for me, that I should keep heart and grow my mind to see. I should grow my mind to find more of myself. My greatest test was to find a story that fits, a story that keeps me well and answers the question on my lips, the heaven that dissolves so true. And in my fingertips, as much as I would reach for love and every purest thing, I've got a body and a mind, and torture in the spring, Got some violence in my family. Got some darkness in my ways. Gotta tell you all the things my mind and body hath sustained. I don't use my music to get up on a stage. I don't use the knowledge on my lips to make a wave. I gotta generate. Oh. Wonderful. Fruit. Fantastic. Hope you have enjoyed. I do. I have to. I still have to generate my life. When I came into the supermarket today, and there was a fairly nice looking sort of model floor manager or something who just instantly made physical response to when I entered the building. And it was okay. And I was oh, okay, oh wow, it's the first time I've really had a response of that woman that age who actually looks good. So it's oh, that sort of made my day. Oh look, it's kind of wow, it's like a seal coming out of the stone. That is so interesting. I was seeing a seal in the wood down there, down at the river, down at the cut. And then I heard a seal, just a sound. I looked around, and then I see it coming out of the stone. So it's I just heard the sound on the highway, calling from what? The unconscious, the ocean, the mother, the father, the unknown. Maybe we should be thankful for the unknown. Thankful for what we have in our capacities, our work, what we can do, really what we do for free before we do it for anything, that our talents, our determination in life, and the opportunity I have to focus my whole mind upon some purpose and generate some money doing it. And I think maybe take a risk and talk about myself a little bit. And YouTube seems like an interesting place to do that, but I'm not sure. I've gotten so lazy on this thing. I don't think it'll ever be more than a journal. And journaling as a writer for me is 99% of what I do. It's very. I've written a lot of books, but I've yet to write something that I would be I'm willing to put that out there and shove it in someone's face and say this can add to your life in some way. And I don't have that confidence. I think I had it since I was born. I think I have what it takes to offer the world something since I was born. To answer that question, what are children supposed to do? I was supposed to come into a family that could understand. I suspect the financial system in many religions put a lot of strains upon the understanding that really has to come easy, otherwise it'll always end up coming hard. That a child is born with a purpose, if they have any purpose at all, financial or otherwise, and that I was born with that purpose, that focus. So my focus is actually in losing focus and coming out here, losing all the kind of focus you would be desperately eager to have if you were me, and then finding the focus from that. Does that make sense? That's kind of what I do every day, or what I want to keep doing. I could hardly avoid it. I really want to take something that I do anyway and use it to generate money by just tightening it up a little bit and explaining myself to other people. I could, to generate money by explaining myself, learning about myself through random strangers who want to pay me money for my services or whatever. Whatever. No one ever made money by saying whatever. You're just oh yeah, I do services or whatever. Whatever. What do you need, sir? How can we help you? You're like a police officer. How can I help you, sir? You're in my store. How can I help you, sir? Sir, How did you come in the store today? What were you doing before you came in my store? Because I need to know personal information about you. And how many people are in your party? Are any of them black? I'm going to need to cavity search them. No. No. Black people are never poor people. I mean, we say that there's a poor white population, a poor black population, but to my mind, poor black people are never poor people as much as my own father was ever a poor person. My father was born to poverty of a kind, and of an extraordinarily agonizing kind, I think. But my father was never a poor person. He was very poor at being a father. That much is certain. And I would rather leave it at that. I wish I could be content with that and work around it. My father really wasn't a very good father, if any father at all. Work around, And write a book, be like, hey, did you kind of lose your mother and father on some deep emotional level that is basically, strictly speaking, abandonment? And there's no point ignoring the fact, whatever anyone else might think, that that's pretty much a reality for you in terms of any subsequent shock you may have sustained, which is also kind of fucking hard to avoid. So there might as well be a workaround that isn't like completely intoxicating denial that is fun, but it's like a car with no brakes. How long can that really sustain itself? And then just put that into a book. It's like, dude, you make this up as you go along. You can't put that in a book. You gotta give yourself a chance to meander around this world, murmur things to yourself, and people will just find their way to you and be like, I want to hear your mojo, Mr. Man. I don't even need to know your name. At one point, I'll simply just show people my penis and they'll be like, thank you. I walked 1,000 miles to see that. I now have downloaded all the information of the universe. The strange thing is about words is that my penis is not a very interesting penis to look at. But because I'm willing to say something so crude, one is prone to err on the side of imagining something a good deal more exciting than the real thing, and thereby achieving the result which I was all the while subconsciously intending, to get people to think about my dick in a way that I would never want to disprove by showing them the real thing. And thereby attain to a dick and an improvement in my dick without any need for surgery or money. I've basically just generated $100,000 worth of plastic surgery through you. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. I'm not sure. What is your word for both of those? Shanghai. Anyway, conversion or perversion, I hope that we can meet somewhere in the middle. I hope that the fact that that tree was cut down by someone is a beautiful part of the landscape at some point. I'm hard on people, maybe because I'm hard on my father. It sucks, when you have a father that disappoints you, a father that scares you, a mother that scares you. I mean, I tell her all the time, like, I'm at your mercy. I'm an honest man. I will say to my mother, who's in a sense my biggest enemy and my best friend, I'm at your mercy. Please, 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 tell me what you got to tell me. Tell your feelings. Tell me to get out. Ask me to get out. Do this. You can delegate. Boom, ba-doom, 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 ba-doom. Please, 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 please. I'm at your mercy. Laws. I come out here and sometimes I think the way I'm talking, I'm kind of talking about the law. Whether the law is just a way of acknowledging the deeply disturbing nature of shock and trauma and the type of knowledge or law that can come out of that. That's not oppressive. It's not, let's go Shanghai somebody. It just gives the shock that you've experienced the value that it needs, a voice in the world. Laws are like voices. Laws should give people a voice. Right? The law of gravity doesn't really give you a voice. It just says that if you jump off a bridge, you'll die. You knew that already. So it's not really adding to your life. It'll say that you'll fall at 9.31 meters per second squared. But that doesn't really add or take away anything from your life. The rain that falls in heaven upon many desires. Now that will change your life. That is a kind of gravity I can get around, you know? Something that comes down, not because something's been cursed or some perverted claim or captivating claim upon our minds, but because something is really falling down to satisfy billions of desires. And think about what falls down, like the sun that is the truth, the way, and the life, and no one shall come to heaven but through the throne of the sun. And imagine that throne in whatever way you can. You will never run out of ways of imagining the throne of the sun, which is the only suitable throne for the earth. She has enthroned herself, ladies, right? She has enthroned herself in the sun, right? And the sun is on his throne at the same time, and it's not a transvestite, right? It's kind of an either-or situation, really, and however you want to think about it. Sometimes I love thinking about how the earth is enthroned upon the sun. The sun is her throne. It's a natural, what it is a natural electrical kingship of all that is feminine and all that is masculine, right? And as much that it is both those things, kind of like the Ark of the Covenant. But you see, an ark is death. See, the ark, or the arch, is the death of the covenant, the death of the sun. The Ark of the Covenant is the death of the sun, which some weird New Age people said is nuclear power. And the Abrahamic races destroyed the earth with a nuclear bomb, blah, blah, blah. You could say that's vaguely anti-Semitic, what have you. But we don't need that. The Ark of the Covenant is the pall over the sun. That's the great knowledge. The knowledge of the craft of putting a pall over the Son of Man, or the Soul of Man. That even the sun is an unsung hero. And if you want to sung that hero becomes more death itself. The closer that the hero becomes the hero by cheating death, the closer to death the hero becomes. The sun only rises because it's cheated death, it's cheated set, it's cheated the night. But its death, its set is imminent. It's so imminent that every measure, every hour of Horus is that of death and imminent doom. It is a pall over the sun. The sun that is nuclear, that dies, that is on death row. Row on row on row, the poppies grow. Row on row on row, war on war on war, of poppies, the opium grows. You see? It's a black magic. It's a reverse magic. Right? The poppy, which could be seen as a pejorative of father. Right? And the patriarchy, or the matrimonial system, and the black magic woman of the world, the Darth Vader, is into male sacrifice. And as much as you may think that the world is about female sacrifice, you would obtain the same resulting type of the architecture of pain, in that your pain becomes everyone's pain, and man's sacrifice becomes everyone's sacrifice. Quite so. If it is an industrial stress, pressure, and then you have to again come back to, what is your mind that it can feel such pressures? What is your mind that it can feel such gravity, which is a kind of pressure? And we're not taught to think of gravity as pressure, but what is most grave and mortifying to human beings is unnecessary pressures in their environment, which are grave pressures. And they exert a gravity upon us, a pressure. And if we get a chance, no matter, we're getting banged up from accidents, banged up from diseases, chronic abuse, domestic abuse, chronic disorders, and difficulties in thinking because of the pressures that we retain a sense of morality about, which is like the same as a voice, and a kind of honesty that comes out as bitterness, perhaps, or depression, or anxiety, because there's something to be afraid of, and it's difficult to say what it is and who it is, but you kind of know when and where it's about, and it's easier sometimes to just call it disintegrating energy, that humans, despite their best efforts, and people prone to alcoholism and addiction and various other effects of industrial poisoning, because we're all trying to survive, And we will sometimes use anything for a cushion that we can to keep when you lose the support of your mother and father, what are you supposed to look for support in? And the support that your mother and father have left for you is where you have to suspend disbelief. And that's all there is. And if you can't do it that way, you're going to have to find some other way. Because there's no way, even at that point, that your brain has survived in terms of the full operation of the seat of your judgment without a pretty good working psychosis, which took over the value of being a child at some point. That learned to be this way and survive this way. Did you ever see children growing up that had learned certain survival skills? And you see young women who they say they sexually mature quicker, but those are also their survival skills, right? Surviving. And they become mothers themselves or fathers, and there's not even a break in between. Not everyone has that neurosis and suffers that sense of something wrong has happened to them. They kind of have a late life or midlife or early life circumcision, and they don't mind. They're running to live their life, and maybe a little bit of their ball or uterus falls off, and it's like the sense of having lost something. A glimmer and a gleam to the moral honesty of a child, which I've discovered more and more is quite correctly said to be innately, if you want to look back on what childhood should be in respecting the human mind, is that we have an innately very, very highly discriminating sense of judgment about everything. You might think, well, children just need a yellow ball. Sure. Imagine an artist, a master artist, who one day just said, I've been just studying the color yellow for 13 years. I love yellow things. What about people who just love wearing purple clothes or wear blue and they like the color? You're responding to the vivid intelligence of that color. You're expressing something of your spirit, or you're resonating with the realm of spirit through color. It's really the only surviving, reliable, justifiable reason to be into fashion, is that wonderful aesthetic response of children who yet probably don't respond to the colors of your clothing when you're a child very much, except maybe certain hues, like the color of their mother's hair. Right? The clothes don't matter as much to a child as your mother's face and your mother's hair, because they look at what's real, they look at what's honest. And, in a way they may not even realize their heart is probably picking up whether you're in a good mood or whether they need to pick up disintegrating energy, right? And they can sustain that for a while, but that builds very, very icy bridges later on that take a lot of work to warm up those pathways, because there lay the way of abandonment. And so it's very important to pay attention to children, passively, to give thought to who they are and how they behave and how they talk, right? It may be nobody needs to ask them how they feel every day. They're like, I feel fine. I'm just guessing. Other children, they'd be like, oh, I don't know. Thanks for asking. Okay, I guess. But now that you mention it, I am feeling a little poopy pants. Imagine a child who could say, I feel bad because I pooped my pants. I bet you your children can do that. Your babies can do that. You can look at their faces and like, I'm not liking this load in my pants anymore. Can somebody do something about that, please? Try reading their minds. Try reading their minds. They might be telling you. We're born speaking a language. The best place to learn your native tongue is in your mother's fucking belly. Your mother's tummy. Your native tummy is a language symposium. Your body is your native tongue. Your child is speaking your native tongue with every limb of their body. They've learned to live. They've built their body out of the music of your own language. That's also why children can have birth disorders, because the music of your life is making them sick. It's through your voice. So I could look at a couple having a child and I could say, make me a sound recording of your entire vocal life around your child, or you're expecting your baby in the womb, for a 3-day period. And I could sit there and analyze it for $100,000. And I will tell you whether or not your baby could get a birth disorder from the way you sound. it'd have to be enough days that you forget you're being recorded. And I could listen to it live and I just say, hey, whoa, hold it a second. I don't like what I'm hearing here. Right? No, stop. I don't like what I'm hearing. Now, let's say the woman is embittered for something. Maybe the husband hasn't been there for her. Imagine what an expecting mother could be angry about. Maybe 100 things, right? And maybe I see that there's been a lapse in judgment of the husband. He's missing something about her, something she needs, something she's kind of telling him, but she's having trouble. She doesn't want him to be psychic. She just needs a little special attention. She's trying to say it, but maybe she's hormonal and she can't. And she's getting a little flummoxed. There are a lot of things that interfere with our communication in our own mother's womb. And it sends people into a kind of mild hysteria or seizure. When I've seen women go to psychosis, they also have a mild hysteria first. They're peaked in the sense that they may be unable to provide for their child or themselves, or in a way where they've been overwhelmed in being able to express something to a primary caregiver when they were a child. And can you imagine like a little girl, a little boy, intelligent, and being hurt, and their feelings being hurt, or being around a hurtful environment, and being able to tell people, like in a perfect world, even if it was imperfect, which is mildly sort of incompatible with the logic of violence as we're discussing it, that such a world is not a world where people pay attention to the results. But if somebody did pay attention to the results and look at how children were behaving, and that they need to say something, and you might need to, a story that I'll share about one woman who doesn't know I know this story, but he almost had to endure an epidural while giving birth to a little boy. And she managed to, basically with her voice, as women can, because they're very powerful, take control of the birth and delivery room. So it was no longer a livery. It was now something where a female had taken command of the birth of her flesh and blood. So birth certificate be damned at that point. This is now a live birth. It just went live. She's a witch. She just went live with her child. She just went bzzz, and her brain just went, fuck these people. Their epidurals and whatever else, their natural culture, they're not trying to hurt, but she saw the evil in it, and her voice went, fuck you. The child was born without an epidural. Little boy is 2 years old. She initiates a discussion about what happened when he was being born, and he has full recollection of the event. She saved her child's life. He will not die of cancer. He will not die of AIDS. He will not die of homelessness. He will not die of drug addiction or alcohol abuse. She saved this fucking little boy's life more than anyone has ever been saved. You can keep all your fucking wars and all your fucking vaccines. This child has just had the Hallelujah special in a delivery room near you. It was actually taken from a delivery room, from a theater of war. It was taken into a beautiful, beautiful garden where everyone should be born, where their mother maintains verbal connection with a human being, whatever your biology teacher tells you, has been singing the music since before their heart even started beating. Because that is the perfect place to learn your mother tongue, and that is the root of all decent knowledge in the world. Doesn't mean that knowledge that people don't say that doesn't mean it's not knowledge, but if you want decent knowledge in the world, try one day when you have time following it to the root of your motherfucking tongue and the working of your own joints and genitals. Because it starts in the fucking music of your mother's celestial waters. And think about the importance of your emotional body, and then it's associated with water. Think about the goddamn miserable changes that we go through emotionally and get sunk and diverted and interrupted by various seen and unseen poisons that live, if nowhere else, upon the human voice and the voices of people around you, who one day can be your best friend and the next day make you physically ill. And this is what I have studied. And how do you come around that and get a hawk-like sense of perspective? Everything you can do, basically, to be a better person and not to get all crudded up by the situation, but not going into denial either. Things need to be said, but the ultimate intelligence of your immune system doesn't need to be used to whack someone over the head. It happens. People push and peak, and conflicts and injustice, and disintegrating energy, which helps with looking at things in terms of shock and getting around it as disintegrating energy. disintegrating energy, people, someone when they're drunk, someone who's lived their life and survived in a way, an environment with such a lapse of critical moral consideration for the voice of their young flesh and blood, is that their young flesh and blood was forced to emulate in order to survive, which is a credible psychosis, really, and every other mental health problem in the world. So we needn't burden ourselves with the challenge of finding out who's really a schizophrenic. The answer is all of us, potentially, or we all know something about it without really getting full-blown. You know, they used to say things like, oh, everyone has cancer. I think everyone has schizophrenia and psychopathy and anxiety and depression, or some variation. You say, well, that guy's more of a depressive, and that guy's more of a schizo, and that guy's more of a psycho, and that guy's... But I guarantee you, anytime anyone does violence, if I were to do violence to you in any way, shape, or form, I hope not, but just the violence of my emotions, for instance, there's a pentagram in those sticks. Love the pentagram. Oh, yeah, pentagram in those sticks. Hello, baby. Magical world out here. Then you would think of me as one of those people. You're like, you clearly have lapsed in making an adequate provision for your, well, in this case it would be your safety, decency, dignity, your people, your race. I mean, I've had like so many strikes for violating YouTube's hate policy that I might as well call myself the hater. you know, 10 strike Haiti loser boy. And I said this to my mom because I really was laughing at it, but she didn't really take it very funny. She said, that didn't sound very nice. But I said, it's a journal. She said, well, you do put it online. It's like, but yeah, nobody's really watching it. It's just a journal. They're censoring me, things that aren't even getting watched. And no one on YouTube listening to this ever is like, oh yeah, 10,000 people are going to watch this motherfucker. Like, that's going to happen. Like, YouTube can't make sure that this never sees the light of day without sending me strike after strike. So my sort of delusion, but fantasy sort of fun, because you have to have fun with it. I know it's probably just this completely useful, legitimate policy, which is catching the very hateful things which I say. And let's just leave it at that. I respect it. I decided to respect it, whatever it is. But I also kind of like to fantasize, if I may, that it's actually personal. They don't like the things I say because I'm really onto them. But you don't really have to get that paranoid, because paranoia really is disrespectful to your intelligence, because if you can question anything, you probably should. Is that things don't have to line up that way. It's people and groups at their best, right? Let's enjoy that policy for what it is. If it gets rid of my videos, maybe that means it works. It's got a good wide net. And maybe you should be happy about that. But that all human beings doing anything, laudable or otherwise, and people who don't like their judgments might be more inclined to consider this, don't always do things just because they think those things should be done. There's room to see how other things get caught in people's morality, which are meant to be caught, even though they're not necessarily immoral in the way that people commonly think. So let's say that I said I hate women, and women are the worst problem in the world, and then connected that, as I do, to like, well, this isn't about hating women. Personally, I'm afraid of women. I have to kind of be afraid more of women than men. Not every day, but I could give a lot of, I think, legitimate discussions about why that has been a very prominent emotion in my life. Not that I hope that it continues, but it is. And I have rhetorical things to say about that. And I do, especially when I'm being harassed or recovering from shock from female harassment, period. So I qualify what I say in terms of these are the personal feelings that I can have. This is the hatred that I can extend. And this is the usefulness of hatred of another gender. If women are going to do it to men, I've actually found a legitimate way to do it to women, and it's been liberating for me. It's really, really good. It's balancing. At the end of the day, if you looked at my video and she's like, God, this guy's really balanced. He's gone through his emotions on YouTube. He's gone through lots of very, very deep, honest feelings. That's pretty cool. And he's showing people that whatever your feelings are, and difficult and shocking as life can be day after day, you can go through it. And calling it shock, and everyone around us, even if you don't feel these things, you might be happy with this kind of wisdom. I guess if people feel like you do, let them honor the shock that they're in, so that helps you contain what's happening. If you felt what they felt, you would feel like, shit, I don't want to feel that way. And they'd be like, no, we don't either. And this is common to us. because we have been shocked a lot, but there is a way. There's paths of growth. These spheres of shock, honored by that word in a way that deserves to be honored before really it can go anywhere else, right? I think it is honored, but you have that chance, I think, or I've had that chance to honor it as the shock that it is. It's kind of interesting to tell someone, hey, I know that I'm going through shock, and it might take a few days or a few weeks. And in your own inner experience, you can feel that shock, once you give yourself the ability to call it that can all of a sudden one day you think you're done, and then it's going into your childhood, and it's like everything your mother did that ever abandoned you, your father, who you just love him to death, and then you hate him the next day, and that shock. And that word shock is so powerful because it's so respectful. It doesn't put anything on it, doesn't take anything away from it. It's getting that primary acknowledgement that all shock should get. It is shock. You're not saying anything else. You're not saying this is the price is right, or I have something to offer you, and here's a pill, or anything else. But I would say that calling it shock can be very helpful. As you go about your day and feel your heart constricting, or feel like, everyone has stresses in life, but for you, if you're depressed or anxious or anything like that, these are real fears you can have. Pleasantly enough, or helpfully enough, it doesn't mean that everything we're afraid of is going to happen. But that doesn't mean we're wrong to feel afraid. We are feeling afraid because this is a way that our emotional body is processing impressions from present or past or in surrounding the habitat of different levels. There you can get to a point of, let's analyze what different reasons I was picking up, because while this was making me very open to what I would call disintegrating energy, during this period of disintegration, I'm also seeing, oh wow, while I'm here, if you're in your house, it's like, well, while I'm under the dryer, I might as well clean it. And while you're feeling this anxiety, why don't I look how this person feels to me? So someone at work makes you feel really vulnerable. You come home and you realize your roommate is giving you a lot of aggro. And it's like, why should I feel that when I've had the worst day of my life? And I'm not saying what to do about that, but it's like, that might be shocking to you. If it's not something you can deal with right away, chances are it shocked you. You're like, Jesus, this person didn't even ask me how my day was. It's like, I pay good money to live in this home. We are sharing personal space. A home should not be a place where someone comes in and feels somebody's aggro. I wasn't aggro to you. I've just had the worst week of my life. That's not fair. That's shocking. Do I dare? It's like, hey, I don't want to be, then it's like, well, what do I say? And it's like, I don't get paid for this. I'll find the right moment. Okay. And it's like, hey, Cheryl. Hey, yeah, what's up, Janice? When I came in today, I really felt like you were giving me a little aggro. Am I off base? It's like, wrong. Don't go passive. Just be like, Becky or Janice, whatever. Sorry. Do you feel like I ever disrespect you? No? Okay, good. And I don't want this to be one of them either. I really don't. That's not the purpose of this discussion. It's just that I had a really hard day today, and when you talked to me the way that you did, I found it really shocking, because when I come home, home is a place of sanctity and a refuge and a safe harbor. And to me, we, as roommates, should give each other that respect, because we are sharing an experience of coming home from what is outside these doors, at least, if not in other parts of our life that we find are quite influential, good or for bad. A difficult world. That's why we come home. We don't sleep under a bridge, because it's dangerous out there. The fact that it's dangerous, whether we experience those dangers at all, just gives a specter of stress and pressure on our flesh and blood that needs to know that it can come someplace where it's not going to feel that something inside our home is making us feel like someone selling flowers under the fucking freeway, who doesn't like the fact that we didn't look at him the right way and is like, hey, what the fuck is your problem? In other words, what I would call aggro. I'm not sure what you were feeling, but when I come into the house, I don't want to feel that way. Does that make sense? Well, gee, Janice or Cheryl or whatever you call yourself, if you're going to be a douche about it, okay. And what kind of response are you going to get? Right? And look, you have to give a fucking speech, to even get their attention. And they probably stop listening after the first 3 or 4 words. They'll be like, oh, well, you sound all book educated and shit, but, I really keep it on the down low. If you want to blow your wad every time you come in the door and I don't fucking lick you from crevice to crack, then that's your problem. And now you've got a problem on your head because you've made enemies in what is obviously a section of the, unofficial prison of the world. And Cheryl is your prison mate, and you realize now that you might be her bitch. And so that's a different set of problems. So the ship is coming in. The proverbial ship is coming in. You'll be able to masturbate tonight with reckless abandon. Yes, good. I think it's time to spend some time with Becky Martins at stripchat.com, who, if you're lucky, will be in various stages of undress and about to initiate a kind of simulated coitus that middle-aged men could fancy includes them in some critical way, without any possibility of contracting a felonious venereal disease. And such little tidbits I'll include on my master channel. I'll call it The Master Speaks. And then you'll go to my B channel and be like, dude, I prefer this guy's longer videos where he explains things in such an elaborate, kooky way. makes my mind spin. He's so deep, scriptural in his own natural wild way. It makes me harken back to a bygone era, where insipid monks of druidic Nancy boy gibberish pranced around like gay boys and delivered nonsense speeches and soliloquies of no devise. Who the fuck are you? I'm your antithesis, your nemesis, your antipode. I'm dark you. I know, like your own son will know, that you're an insipid bastard who's never been more than an inferiority complex on Quaaludes. Okay, you got me. That's alright. I was just kidding. I'm actually an alpha male psychotic complex speaking to you from a dark room inside your mind that the bolt just rusted open and, well, good morning, Vietnam. Oh, now that pentagram is like a lion with a pentagram head. Hello. It's really a beautiful collection of branches, really. X. And then I see these, I don't tell people, I see like little statues or little things in nature and I'd be like, wow, did somebody make that? Oh no, it's just the way the sticks are growing. So I'm actually seeing things that basically the spirits of nature are making in nature, and I'm seeing them, or I'm making myself see them. I'll see a little gnome or a face in the bushes or the stone. Sometimes the faces, I will warn people, you start seeing faces and stuff, some of them might look strange, they might look a little unhappy, but just think of it like those Chinese or native masks, they might look unhappy, but they're there to scare the tits off the demons, in the bad sense, because demons can be used in good and bad ways, and I'll discuss that more I learned about it. Just in the ways that I use those words, and then just say, this is the way I would use this word this way. And basically, different ways that people use demon is something that can be like a friendly spirit or a protective spirit, or ways that you can use in your imagination to think of launching powerful levels of your own protective spirit, using pentagrams and magic. You get really emotional when somebody's hurt you. It's nice to be able to say, I sick all of my demons upon this person, their family, and 10 generations of their people. In every organ of their body, pentagrams will spin. That will be in favor of the judicious resolution of this incorrigible violence upon my flesh and blood. This slightly unnecessary drainage upon my mind, which I shall not abide. My umbrage knows no bounds, and the pentagram is the only thing that's truly protecting both of us from a vortex of destructive energy that I have happened upon to my great and utter dislike. And God was not watching. So I pranced around naked like a fairy and played with myself under the moon, saying, why are you so cold? But that I must champion some heat from within myself, and not only wait for winter and spring and summer to let me be as cold or as warm as I should be. That maybe in some cold winter's night I should dream up some very sexual magic in some quiet home where I have delivered myself into these long years, these countless pains upon my flesh, that I had daredly dreamt of the perfect conditions like these, as utterly unacceptable as they are, that I might draw forth some great and ancient and romantic magic and count myself as rich a man who ever breathed this day, and among so many respirations, that I should count this death or this agony none as much as I should, and wish the same for my fellow man when my life is lay prone to doom. And how should I count upon your love for me if I offer you no such thing? Not until I need it do I walk around, even as a child, and think not of the agonies of those who are my betters in every way, those who had labored and endured things that I could make different names for, but I will never know them better than my ancestors, that my ancestors should be the greatness of things. My ancestors should be the names of things before I knew the names of things, and they should course through my own flesh and blood. So I should never count myself an inferior person for knowing not the names of these things, that I find my life dizzy with my hunger to put the names to all the things that I can feel. So I question the confidence of those who know the name of everything and the spirit of nothing. When your life needs meaning, it needs spirit. And you must deal in spirit to find that meaning. You must truck with it. You must do congress with the realms of spirit. That broken down simply would include a wild imagination. You could encounter any religion in the world. You could have grown up in any religion in the world, and you would slowly and surely and safely draw out some valuable and usually broad impressions upon your mind of a very strong way of thinking about the big problems of the human mind and its desire to continue living and its fear of not living, which is a biological fear more than it needs to be an absolute fear, in that the whole nature of your being does not need to be afraid of death, because the full nature of your being goes through death. I hate to be morbid, every fucking day. I mean, you die and come back to life every fucking day. That's not even including sleep. That's the day. You die by day. The day kills us, right? You ever come home and feel like you're dead? You know, if it feels like heaven, the more it feels like heaven when you crack open that beer or get on the couch or light that cigarette or pour that coffee or jump in the shower, the more it feels like heaven, the more you've been in hell, the more you've been dead all day long, right? You're in heaven because you died, right? So you regenerate. And then the next day, you go out there and you die again. And then you might think, well, in a strictly romantic sense, what's wrong with that? Well, I think there's something wrong in not knowing that your body, when it goes to work, is regenerating from death. And then you want to have as much power as you can over your process of dying and coming back to life every day. To make sure you are coming back to life every day, you know? I come home and I take a scalding bath and I bring myself back to life every day because I die out here. A little bit. I think I do. I think I leave a part of myself out here. In a nice way. I've left my spirit. I just saw the black jaguar, which in medicine, I've always liked the Black Panther or the jaguar as a cat, as an energy, you know, because again, thinking of the unconscious, not a term I really like, but let's just call it that. The black conscious, the unknown. Pretty cool, hey, because we're heading into the autumn, and this part of the world is very autumnal. I love autumn. Don't you love autumn? You know, the end of the summer here is very humid. It's uncomfortable. I am in my heaven, which, owing to our last discussion, we can now say, means I was probably dead or died, and now I'm in heaven. You know, you ever like watch those movies where something happens and the person thinks they're still alive? You know, from some awful plane crash, they're like, wow, no scratches. Good for me. And then you find out, silly, it's like, no, they're all dead, you know. And how wonderfully in denial you can be after a plane crash, because, you know, this isn't so bad. We can just wander around the airport for eternity. We pretty much felt that way anyway. Now we get to do the real thing. Anyway, how like you could be dead and not know it. You come home every day, maybe it's heaven. Hey, you died. Right on, man. You're like Horace coming home from the races, or Odysseus coming home in your car. How many times did my dad come home and that sun would have been setting behind him? He came to work. He was always facing the dawn. He was always going east. It must have been amazing for him. He never talked about it, but he drove on the highway by himself, and he was always facing the east. And my dad, in a sense, was a sun worshiper. And he would come home at nights from where he worked, and the sun would be behind him. I know. I went to work sometimes. When you come down 104th, and that sun, you come down the number one highway, you're going east, the sun is pretty much behind you. You know, your day is behind you. Setting, glowing. And you come home, come back to life. And he came back to life on that highway. Because I know my dad's life was hard, and he'd come through that door, and he had a lot of energy. Hello! And he stirred the house up with his energy. And it intimidated me. My mom wasn't like that. My dad would come home and he'd be like, hello, and he had ideas about making dinner. He probably had an idea already as to what he would cook for dinner. And after my mom left, that's pretty much what he would do. And my dad was in charge of things. And I was intimidated by that. But part of the reason I was intimidated by that is because my mom had never taught me to respect male energy. You get this? Right? Because I was so attached to my mom. Because my mom had already removed my father from my life before I was born. Her energy blocked him sexually. She had no real interest in him. And so she actually lost interest in me to the same extent. And all I could do was become more attached to this narcissistic maternal entity. At no point do I wish to say that my mother was a bad person. I'm trying to understand the conditions. So I lost my dad. I was going to lose my dad. That I think ill things about my dad could scarcely be separated from the fact that my dad probably never had a chance of earning the respect that he deserved from me. A certain respect, which if I had a little bit more maybe, it would have gone a long way with my father, who was already being spent. And my mom tricked me. And I don't want to fall victim to my mom's tendency to make excuses for herself. But I'm also making a place for myself to survive. And I know that my mom's energy, and this is not meant negative to my mom, did sort of remove my father from my life in a way that made me attach myself to her. Not in the worst way, but certainly in a noticeable clinical sense that, given my living circumstances, would seem quite significant. But think of this also, that through all of this, do you think I want to be clinically analyzing this sort of thing? No. Do I have to? Yes. Does it take a certain faith? Yes. If your heart doesn't quiver talking about your mother and father this way, you wouldn't be normal. And the hardest thing in the world in my line of work is making adequate room for that, because I'm hard on myself. And that is a real danger when you're very cynical, is being hard on yourself. Or being very clinical. I don't want life to be clinical. But if it needs to be, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to be honest. Somehow, I think that walking outside in some great mystical, magical sense has been a very critical part of my healing. And like today, I have a very, very rare opportunity. This is like a holy day to me. There's a reason why I'm so mellow. It's like something has changed. Things can now relax at a much better, deeper level. I can enjoy the autumn. Wherever I end up living, everything will be okay. Because if my mother's energy is okay, it's easier for me to find a good place to live. Right? You know, if she's feeling good, then everything's good. Say, hey, this is my mom. I've lived with her for a while. I'd like to live here if I could. Yeah. Okay. You need to find someone nice. It'll be a female. Someone maybe with some acreage. Who knows I'm safe and in return can be safe to me. Yeah. The only way for a woman to get close to me is through my mind. And women, I mean, have no lack of strength to their mind, but for obvious reasons like employment, their mind has become out of focus with my mind. Their focus is different than mine. In very ways that I'm sensible not only will be irritating to me, but also to them. And I credit the ones who can notice that with a certain, good intelligence immune system. You don't want to mix your mind with someone who really doesn't see things the way you do on some critical level. We all have that prerogative. And that's that. On a more sort of candid sense, some of these women, like the one I'm thinking about now, kind of seem like sociopaths, And I know in a sense I'm calling a little girl a sociopath when I say that, because in that sense I've said like child means soldier. There are things that are appalling, life-denying, I think, and this is a very bold statement, so it enters the realm of, say, academic speculation and conjecture perhaps, but I think it's very appalling the way, and we're all involved in this in some way, we've all been affected, or we're all trying to deal with it, be positive, right? And we might find a certain relief to the heart that knows all too well that the sadness of the world swells with no greater injustice than that we know too little about what children deserve, quite irrespective of what the world wants with them in any way, shape, or form. And I know that most people don't complain about that necessarily, but when I look into illness and violence and all the things I study, it's restful, actually, for me to say that. I feel like that's what I'm bringing back. That's what I'm bringing back to the children of the world. That's the jewel of all my agonies, in some stupid sense that I toil away at maybe utter nonsense, and I could bring some jewel for the children of the world. And for all of us to just take a moment. I just don't think we know as much about children as we think we do. I think we know more about the moon landing than we know about children. Please, I think every line of cynicism, everything that would just scare the tits off your neighbors that you can think of, that we could do better for children, I think should be submitted to the ethers every day of our lives. As much as you've ever spared a whisper for your God or your goddess to give you relief or your people relief from anything, let us spare a thought for the inadequate attentions which we pour, however lovingly, upon our children. It's something that I've learned. It's not something I want to direct at someone or hurt people with. It's the beginning of a discussion. It's not the end of one. You feel like our lungs need to breathe a bit more. Our children need a little bit more space, in every way. A little more freedom, a little more childhood, a little more room. Don't be so quick to gird us in with your systems. Please. I know I speak somewhat inadequately in a sort of cliche hippie jingo, you might think, that fits so easily into some weird pinko liberal Nazi white blonde-haired white supremacist misogynist son of a bitch who fits right into that category of all the people you hate the most. I mean, just put down your flaming sword for a second. You don't always have to play the seraphim guarding the garden where some awful crime is supposed to have been committed. And I say, yes, there is a crime to us. There is a crime to women. There is a crime to men. And we can talk about that, but put down your fucking sword. Because my garden is sacred too. And they can talk. We don't have to be an invasive weed in each other's garden. I don't buy your fucking biblical story. I don't buy any of your gender studies stories. I don't buy your cultural anthropology, feminist cultural anthropology. I don't. I've read it. I've read it cover to cover. I enjoyed it. I toasted myself to the relief, the real relief beyond any religion I'd seen that feminism gave to me. Really amazing. Fuck. I said earlier, like anything you read, any concept you come across, any religion you come across, you can always take something from it because of how it made your mind work. And people, whatever they believe, however wrong it may turn out to be, are putting so much credible, sincere energy, as would I, and have I, that these ideas, however deceptive they may be, has to reflect some decent truth. It must clasp upon some nourishment, or it will deny the most sophisticated cult one's devotion. So there is something to everything people put their minds to. But then you need to put more of your mind into it. I mean, emphasis on your own mind, your own voice, your own life, your own need for purification. Purification doesn't have to be just about your religion. At some point, doesn't every Muslim child finish all of their religious responsibilities and go for a walk somewhere to purify themselves? Did not Allah himself provide for you a land where you can be free to breathe, and breathe out the unnecessary stresses of the world for yourself and for your family, for your children, and to hope that one day if they should need to de-stress in some wild place, that Allah would have provided for them, and you would not have them be touched by some scorn which they did not deserve, nor to scorn themselves, but let Allah in his perfect judgment scorn them, that they should not trouble themselves to scorn themselves in his name. For they are, by your own admission, not capable to do as much. They are not so suitable a judge, are they? So why come to these places where we relax from all of the tribulations that this world may trouble the finest of minds, that Allah himself is the finest architect? And does not your religion show some great refinement of mind that does Allah credit? And shouldn't you be wished to honor Allah with the fineness of your mind and the fineness of how it turns itself about the scriptures of Allah? And should you not come to some wild place and know the notes of those scriptures have not yet been exhausted? And I say yes and yes to your religion if we can meet in that wonderful middle ground where great minds do not need to think alike, and that is rubbish. Great minds don't need to go to war either. The sky does not need to go to war to produce the rain of many desires. And upon many desires. Do you not have pure desires? Do not I? Do we not have a pure desire for clean water? Do we not have a pure desire to give our hearts to what they might enjoy? The relief of some tears here or there. There should be no disturbance in the place that it sanctifies, in a place you can find such a voice. Have you not sanctified that place with your own skull, with your own flesh and blood? Is it so strange a thing to enumerate what our flesh and blood enjoys and what our flesh and blood does not enjoy? And that I turn my mind to such things, I am not purely a selfish man. And please do not accuse me of that. It is not mere hubris that brings me here every day. It is not laziness. It is not because I am quite terrified of getting a real job, aren't you? Can you not only turn yourself to your passions? Do you not wish to honor the spirit of protecting and honoring your home and your flesh and blood, though you defied all the kings and queens of our language and all the curses thereof? And a great many people will be very disappointed when you say that when you turn your eyes to the sun, you see the life, the truth, and the way. And you see everything great that is this earth's bosom and femininity supreme, and you say all that is man's natural pride in himself and his kind, that he makes his mind worthy to sit that pride like the sun upon the throne of the world. And then make the measure of a man what you may, but make these words their law, and you shall have peace eternal in the palm of your hand. And in the sap from the trees, and all that touches your eyes like a jewel. And so you look for little hues and scents, like a great bear looks for his food. And does not man yearn for many kinds of food, and many scents and hues of his mind, that it may turn itself upon some little thing and find all of its peace? And only for a moment, he holds that little jewel in his hand, and he thinks that itself is so sumptuous, and he takes time to let it nourish him. And then he thinks maybe that in one day or this, are there not a trillion sumptuous things that his ventricles have found the way to touch and be touched by? And I say thank you. Seems like a nice man. Strong man. He's cleaned up today. He's a good aura, he's a good boundaries. He's a good guy. Yeah, I think he felt good. Yeah, he felt good. I try to be respectful to people, He is very great. He's good to have around. He's a strong dude. He's nice. But when he does down there, he sits by the rail tracks and oops, I'm sure there's a story to that. Ouch. A little twinge in my arm. Well, I guess it's good in a sense that I get a twinge. Like every omen is a good omen. I'm glad that I can talk. I'm not saying that the man in a sort of injudicious sense couldn't have a little scallywag of a cabin somewhere and drink too much rum, put on a captain's hat, and look like the Highliner guy for a second before he starts assaulting me, choking me to death, putting me on a giant pan, and I wake up with like an onion in my mouth, the sound of a sizzling pan, and thinking, am I in a cartoon from the 1970s? The evil Popeye. Well, in a dark sense, men can place me at their mercy as well as women can. And I just want to be in nature and think, that sun can be the sun of all womankind's most holy breast, and that sun can be everything a man or king had ever wished to share with the world. And the earth's very own. The earth's very own. And we could find shards of the knowledge of that kingdom. That man's spirit followed me for a little bit. Hey. That's okay. It can be good when that happens. I just, look, a butterfly just came up behind me. I said to say, you're okay. And when you watch things and you feel things and you see how things talk, and know your mind be some sort of demented chatterbox, you have not swayed so far from its North Star. Your mind does not sway so far. Are not the stars in their fixed and appointed places? So does every creature speak to you in its way, and it's at its appointed hour. And when you measure the hours of your life, or you can one day out of the 7, just let it feel like it did when you were a child, and make signs and signals, and just wander under the sun, feel whether or not you have to poop or take a piss. It's like walking when you were a baby in your mother's and father's house. I think it's nice to think that people can do that. It may seem strange to some people, but it's nice to say, you don't need anything to do that. You don't have to go to a hockey game if you're shy. I'm talking to shy people now. This is something you had when you were just walking down the wheel ruts. Or every place you played when you were young was like that it had some green and wild thing, that a bird could sit there and take a crap. Was it not a sacred place? Does not the vellum of nature's ultimate law and its supreme music not touch you? And did you not know its very language in the womb of your mother? Did she not teach you? Did those waters not minister to you? And that is the power of your flesh and blood through hers, and these many suns and moons that should be added to the beauty and the length of your mother's and father's days, that every scintillating second of their existence should feel the aesthetic revelations and concussions of their deaths and lives, totally enumerated, totally suffice, totally sufficient, paying and resolving all debts, remedying all disequilibriums. Are we not heir to such a power that would be unrelenting if we gave it but a sacred hour to commune with us? And this is what I seek, and this is what I hunt with my senses. The bear of me, if you will permit me, the senses and the instincts of every beast that crawls, and with every instinct that it does so. That a man has many tastes for all the spirits of this world, and all the ways that we talk. Do we not? And the stars in their fixed place, and our voices in theirs. And they should find no asphyxiation in their exertions, but end everything that chokes you, and throw it off. And throw off any idea that the exertion of some question did not make you feel a little more emboldened than you did a moment before you made that sound or that objection because it did and did do your mothers and fathers proud to give a voice to that which they may not have had the chance to do so, but lived their life with a voice of strength and work in every way that you could use as your muse, as your Lord's Prayer. The scriptures of your own body had no better ancestry, and you would make it sound. Even in the autumn, I start singing Christmas songs. You'll please forgive me, but this is my favorite time to have Christmas. It's the autumn. I mean, this is the best Christmas. The other Christmas is just a mess. It's like the icy, weird, gooey snow that collects to our cars. The worst of times. But, oh, come on. Let's park our cars. Let's let the malls entertain us with their tinsel and their ladies in green dresses and their Santa Claus with their pus-filled jackets and their semi-erect penises ready to grate your infant children. Look at this one. Doesn't Santa look happy? And I bet you Santa's really happy. The brighter I see, the look I see in Santa's eyes, the more I seem to lose my child. I lose all taste for the Christmas season. I, like you, walk by through the mall and just think, I'm not looking. The children are mostly happy, and then there's ones that just scream. You know what? That's me, baby. 1975. You see that screaming baby? Yeah, that's me. Beautiful blue eyes, right? A little colicky. You know what? I don't like being handled by strange men. Call me crazy. 1974. Fast forward to 2021. I like to be the only one who ever has my cock in my hands. That means I'm a virgin. My palms aren't really hairy, but I think in the sense that they should be, because my taste for romance is rather more simian than my fellow man, for all the lack of real and genuine sexual contact which I have ever had. I don't know what to make of that. Maybe the BBC would like it one day. National Geographic, David Attenborough, one of his grandchildren. They're like, ooh, but okay. He'll send me one of his granddaughters to do a full page write-up in National Geographic. But of course they'll do a very tasteful job of telling me about how I've never had one. Not of the hand variety or the mouth. These aren't things I really want grabbing me and feeding me and putting me in their mouth like a hot dog at the baseball game. I don't think that's nice to compare a man to something like a smoked sausage. I mean, I enjoy as much as anyone else the lingo, the jargon. But really, what do I have to give a woman? It doesn't fit into her vagina. It's supposed to fit in her heart, like a key that opens up her vanity box when she takes out masks from her dear departed childhood and starts to live out her hatred for her father with me. But only in a passive-aggressive sense, where pretty soon she kind of just owns your ass, and you've become increasingly happy trying to prove her worthy of your own imagination of her. Oh, the church of the pussy-whipped man. Don't go. The church of the man who prefers his hand, 'cause he's been a pussy-wussy-lissy, pussy-wussy-whipped man. Let's go back to a song for the pussy-whipped man. He wants to lick that pussy from the crevice to the crack. He wants to sing like Jesus when he's getting a little back. That's right. I think he's given enough, ladies. You don't need to murder that man. Every spring, you just gotta give your man a little bit of love and keep it out of the oven until it's done. You know what I'm saying? I gotta take an incredible piss. It's a problem, really. Oh. It's a medical condition that can be cured by taking out my wang and then just feeling the great, pleasant relief of urine flowing out of it. Not as fast or as powerfully as it might have used to, but still, assuredly, it gets to its rightful place out of my bladder. And with that, a lot of other consternations, which I can't fully explain yet until I get myself into the appropriate position. This is the closest thing to sex I ever have. Please give me a moment to enjoy myself. Oh, a mushroom. Hello. You're very welcome in the sense that I am welcome to see you, but not in the sense you need my permission to be there. Okay. Oh, God. Oh, good. Mushrooms are a good sign. Autumn mushrooms on your path. That's good. Can't eat that one. Not that I would. That's okay. In fact, I prefer that. I don't want to eat them. I don't want to eat pungencies. The fruit of the tree is not to be digested easily, but with great caution. It is not always food, really. To say that it's fruit is even a bit of a deception. It is medicine. The forbidden fruit, is actually medicine. There you go. I'll give you that much. And it's related to Christmas, so you tell me. Okay. And it's around sometimes at Christmas time. In places that have evergreen trees that you seem to like to kill for Christmas. I don't know what's that about. Forbidden fruit and killing the trees that they grow under, and I don't know, reindeer that are supposed to leave their droppings so that you can actually help you see that the paths of the sun and the medicine of the sun like to crisscross in something other than the sky. And then you see what is fixed and why in the paths of the sun and the deer that delivers you from evil. Indeed, you should be delivered from evil. You should be delivered from what delivers you from evil. That your mother should be imagined as nothing more in the delivery of your flesh and blood to some sort of stillborn abattoir meted out by the unremitting grandeur of your quotidian existence. What? The labors of your days, the measures of your death, the actuaries thereof, and the retirement which you will not like to enjoy unless you can do so from 6 feet to the ground or in an urn your wife calls Lexer, because he was like a light that passed before his time. Meanwhile, I'm getting my ass whacked in Rome. Whoa, did I say whacked? I meant wax. A little whacking will do. This lady has done her time. She's paid her bill to society. She's buried her third husband and is ready to enjoy her retirement. Like Raquel Welch, I just had better good time. Okay. Dinosaurs were never invented. They're just big lizards that had a problem with aggression. Okay, hold it. Oh, yes, 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 yes. I don't know how I found this place again. My goodness. What was I saying? Yes. Oh, words tucked in my bladder, like empty promises, and unforgiven aromas from hell's quagmire. Its charnel gardens are bursting with joy, which is, strangely enough, a poisonous mushroom that grows in cemeteries, so that people may enjoy at a nonce that these people enjoyed one work day at a time. One weekend of rum and cokes, the TV turned onto baseball or football or some other diversion of considerable worth in the great Parthenon of human denial, the gods of whose opiates and whose great nepenthe were meted out one commercial break to the next. Now, do not think me ungenerous, do not think me unkind when I speak with my mouth about things which people spend a lot of time enjoying after the many exertions which they have undertaken to supply me in the name of the financial system and God, which they quite understandably know no other exception to. And I think that we need to sacrifice ourselves to something or we'll never be happy. You know, I'm not happy to live somewhere where I give a little bit of my flesh and blood to my habitation, but it must perhaps take something from me day by day, even if I know not. And perhaps all the better that I don't, you know? Sure, take your little taxes, take your little wounds, take a little scar tissue here and there. Take a little pride. Take some time. But don't take all my time. You know, when people take too much of my time, I get a wee bit scurvy. I get the trots. You know, I smell an energy parasite. I can see them and smell the stink of them 100 meters away. And then today, if I am to say that this is a holy day, or where I honor and thank parasitical people for stressing me the fuck out and then leaving, so that life, no matter where it was at that, would be better than being around that person. Literally. And there was a lady in the building during the summer that I just, like, being around her was like taking a shower with an overweight, ugly porn star. You know, there was something so wrong with just how she works energy. It's just like, I'm not a fucking new age freak. It just doesn't take a genius to know these are one of those people that you don't even want to be around. They make you feel sick. I would shit funny for 2 days after talking to her. It just disturbed my system so much. I'm like, fuck. You're just like, when are they leaving? I was counting the days and the weeks. I was like, oh, they're fucking gone. I actually had to confront her at one point. Not about that, but I mean, enough to turn her off talking to me and my mom. And that's enough said. And we started to feel better. It made us feel better. It's like, it's one of those moments, like, you have to be some kind of wizard. Like, what the fuck can you say to someone who's draining the fuck out of you? And I've had that happen many times with females of different sizes and weights. So it's not just about being fat, you know. There's something else. There could be skinny and something else. There could be this and something else. So it's not just fat. I say, like, you know, fat, ugly women all the time, because fat women are kind of gross. A lot of the time, not always. But if a woman is attracted to me and she's fat, well, at some point she's going to figure out that I'm not going to fuck her. You know, and even if she has the best personality in the world, because I don't like fat girls. You know, I should get to you because I don't like fat girls, like, that way. But I think some fat women can be great friends, you know? Because, like, you don't think of them that way. It's like, you can be friends, like, from childhood. It's like, not even sisters, just like, you know, I mean, sometimes they find guys to fuck them, and they're really kind of weird, but they'll fuck anything. I'm happy for them. You know, they have a night or two of fun, and they sort of, you know, then they're done, because it's not really real, and that's who they get. And it's sad, you know, they're kind of like, you have to become a prostitute to have sex. You know, oh man, you know, someone should fuck the fat girls. There should be fuck a fat girl day, you know? Fuck a fat girl day. So every year, it should be Valentine's Day. It should be fuck a fat girl day, you know? Because, I mean, I'm a virgin. I can't have sex. And you can make fun of me all you want. The fat girls can poke fun at me all they want. But I'm not going to poke them, you know? I just don't like fat girls. I mean, there are some of the fat people are some of the nicest people I've ever met. And there's some of the worst people I've met. And skinny people are some of the nicest people. And, you know, it's not really the fat issue. It's not the body type issue. But, you know, a psychopath are quite often fat. Or they have, the way their fat is distributed on their body would tell me they're other psychopaths. Or, strangely enough, they've just lived around psychopaths. You know, and you get the rounded fat shoulders, the chubby cheeks, and things like that. But the choices you've made, like, I've lived around psychopaths, but I don't have chubby cheeks. You know, what I had was a searing intellect when I was born, because I spoke my mother tongue. And whatever else this world taught me, whatever else I learned in my mother's womb, I learned that something was wrong. And so I was also speaking the mother tongue of the earth and sun and stars, which my mother's womb is also heir to. So you could say that my mother's womb is the place of heaven, and my mother's womb was heir to hell. It was, you know, the mind is in its own place. The mother's waters will deliver you the knowledge of everything evil in this world, or coursing through her own flesh and blood in ways she cannot help, and create shock and abandonment from the beginning, right? And so the Bible almost seems like it should have shock and abandonment, because, you know, the forbidden fruit is the poison and the industrial pressures which your mother has digested like it's forbidden fruit. It's like, we're not supposed to take that into our body. It's been a little too incorporated too long, you know, and so on. Okay, this is the subject of shock. It's like, whoa, and the mind goes a wildly different way. It's not fun anymore. But let's put that as part of the tree of life and knowledge, part of the root system. It's one of its major trunks, right? And then there's these celestial waters that we wouldn't know what's wrong, except we were ministered to. Our spirits were of the very music. We were notes in the eternal orchestra of existence, among what ministered to the development of our flesh and blood by all the measures of the heavens and the earth. Which is why we say we have this thing like a spirit and a conscience that responds to the beauty and not the mere embellishment that you might think any beauty, every aesthetic of nature. When mathematicians say there's a certain beauty to some equations, you're like, well, at least it's beautiful. Yeah, I get it, because things that are beautiful kind of make sense, right? There's a pure poetry to what works. And you don't get it every day, but like a great guitarist, you look for it. It doesn't matter if you're a musician or not. Everyone looks for a little bit of pure poetry, a little bit of redemption every day. But not in that weird sense that you owe the world something. In that sense that the hungers that grow in you, the insufficiencies which you have known, and all the shocks thereof, and all the concussions thereof, they are fed at deep levels where we think we're going to be dead, essentially. A celestial music that ministers, and it's like the music isn't trying to envelop everything evil, right? It's resolving bits of it into knowledge and smoke and sensors of every wild place that is processing all the evil and shock of the world with us, so that every shock that you have, you share with not just the beauty, but the power of purification, right? So that beneath every bomb's concussion, for every bomb and every psychosis in every brain, being, spread out in ways that some people think, wow, that's just something they do now and then, and other ways, things that just shock people and leave people shocked because of the great and chronic demands which it can place upon the human mind. We say bullying, we say this, that, the unmet needs, the role playing, the lack of honesty, the lack of morality, right? Things that aren't there that should be. You miss them when they're gone, and they're really gone. There's no army marching going, oh, sorry, I lost trust for my father. Let's fold the flag and put it on the coffin of trust. You're like, wow, you're a very dramatic young man. No, I think something's really died. Some of the hardest thing in life is death, divorce, and things that children can lose. And let's think about that for a moment, eh? Let's give a little time in the breathing of nature that makes all things free. Free. Let's feel the truth of that. And let's feel what's wrong in the trunk of evil. And let's feel why we know it's wrong. Because of that great celestial grandeur. Not some Mary Poppins blah 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 synesthesia. The beauty that comes into your fucking skull. The skull and crossbones of that beauty is life everlasting. It's the great teeming sunlight coursing through the veins that makes every little drop of blood, like every tiny thing coursing out of the desires of the earth. The great nepenthe of the sun and seat of the very judgment of this earth, and all that she is a man, and all that she is a woman. Your judgment, the discriminating power of your flesh and blood by birth, and whatever your parents taught you and trained you and abused into you from in the waters of your own fucking mother's womb, and all the shock that ever ricocheted through the waters of her delicate and celestial mind from before her birth and that of her grandmother, and everything great and as it should be, that sings too through your lips and did when you were a child and does now, even though people have not heard what they should. In the music, not just of your grade 3 recital, but in your screams and your anger and your determination. That even in the most narcissistic circumstances, you will get what you want from your mother. You will get what you want from those that are worthy of your attention, and not some narcissist that you married, but the first narcissist that gave birth to you, who ministered to you as a father, who just for whatever reason couldn't give you what you needed, and so you learned to do whatever you could to get what you need from someone who couldn't and would never give it to you. They would never get what they want from you because they don't see you, and they end up taking something from you they shouldn't, and they never get what you would be more than happy to offer them. Like you offered something to the sun and it said, oh, I love your offerings. I love the love that you offer me. I'm glad I waited until you had what you wanted to give me and not what I took from you. Just think about that on every deep emotional level that narcissism can enter into, and we deal with it. We deal with it, don't we? We bring our discriminating power. No, the narcissist, in any shape of our minds, will not get it what it wants when it takes what it wants from someone and it doesn't respect enough, demonstrably, to wait for them to give them what it has to give. And then they are left losing something which they feel vainly and vaguely responsible for having lost, if only because they had no choice but to trust you. Is that the torture that you would put your children, your clients, your students, your patients? Is that the torture you would ignore that they've already sustained for many moons and many generations? And maybe it is time to acknowledge this shock. Hey now, 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 hey, 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 hey now. Hey, hey now, hey now, hey, 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 hey now, hey, hey, hey now, hey, hey, hey now, hey, hey now, hey, 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 hey now. Looks like a woodpecker has gone along here. It's like one line, two line, three line. It's like Braille on the side of the tree. I never saw that before. Wow, they really go to. That's why I heard them earlier today, because they've been hungry. I love imagining sometimes, like if you look at medicine, you look at animals and see the woodpeckers operating on the trunk of the tree like my mind would operate, hungry for anything it can find in the tree of life, which is all of our life, anything and everything about our life, right? And then I think, well, maybe the woodpecker favors me because my mind is also working well. And you can see an affirmation of that. Animals as affirmations. I'm sometimes quite startled by the presence of the owl in my spread or in my cards or in my day. And trying to learn to see the affirmative nature of the owl, of the strength of my mind. And that it's not the bane of my existence to be able to see through things. To coat the depth of my perception, that of the owl, with the generous warmth of the sun, and to bring innocence and lightheartedness to my seriousness and my passion. If I'm going to have a family, I have to catch up to myself a little bit. I can't just expect a woman to answer to my ferocious mind all the time, nor am I expected to be around someone who never really wants to know what I think and feel, or simply laughs at it in my seriousness. There's a time for that, but I had this stalker and she would just laugh at me all the time. She never take anything I said seriously, so you almost never bother saying anything serious to them. I started talking about how my testosterone count was so high that a woman in the distance, this was farm country, pushing her baby carriage. Actually, I saw this woman a few times. She's really healthy, and she would run with her baby, and I think a dog. I just had total admiration for it. Not in the way that I was looking at her ass, just like she was clearly a secure mother with a partner. You could see that. I'm like, shit. I'm not into jogging, but if that's how you can work in some serious getting oxygen in your body, that's pretty damn good. Getting the whole family a go, I think that's great. Yeah. Anyway, but I saw this woman in a distance, and I just said to her, "Oh look, she's probably smelling my testosterone even from a distance." And I would make jokes like this, and she would laugh, and because that's all the sex I wanted, is just to make fun of it, because I don't know what people do with all that stuff, but I'm not sure what you do with it, people. I'm not sure, what to make of that. Never had the opportunity. Women never take the word no. I don't have anything they want. And a few other things I've come up with from time to time. Like, I'm looking at the roots of these trees and the discoloration, or just different colors, and it's so wonderful. You could just take a picture of what I'm seeing and just make it the most wonderful painting in the most wonderful place in the world. It's just, you see a few of the stones I picked up, I've gathered over some pretty difficult days. I look at these stones and go, boy, I waited a long time. I've waited weeks since that, picking up one or two of these stones and being, this is the hardest. That one stone is from the hardest day of my life on earth. That marble is from one of the hardest days of my life on earth. And now I can stand. I just gotta take a deep breath. I am gonna call home though, so hold on.